Welcome, Welcome, Commissioner, CDE staff, and members of the public watching remotely. I'm Sharice Guerra, Chair of the Instructional Quality Commission, and I call this meeting to order. Public comment on today's meeting agenda items may be provided during the meeting, either in person or by signing up on the sheet located at the back table, or by dialing 667-770-1523, and then following a prompt to provide a participant access code. Callers will then be added to the queue. The operator will notify callers when it's their turn to provide public comment. If possible, we recommend members of the public dialing in for public comment to continue to view the live stream of the meeting for a better understanding of the meeting status. When it's your turn, please mute the live cast audio when giving public comment. Please state the following: commenter's first and last name, organization affiliation if any, and public comment. Again, the phone number is 667-770-1523. The access code is 651905, hashtag, or pound. The phone number and access code will also be announced at the start of public comment for each item. This is also outlined in December 4th, 2025 IQC agenda posted on the IQC webpage. Now I will introduce each commissioner participating in today's meeting. When I call your name, unmute your microphone and confirm your attendance, then mute your microphone again. Commissioner Lena Bradshaw.
Present.
Commissioner Gia Danliner. Commissioner Jaquay Durant.
Present.
Commissioner Cheryl Fry.
Present.
Commissioner Javier Hernandez.
Present.
Commissioner Jennifer Hicks.
Present.
Commissioner Janet Lanning.
Present.
Commissioner Neil McGaffey.
Present.
Commissioner Alicia Regosa.
Present.
Commissioner Nikki Reyna Guerra.
Present.
Commissioner Ku Vang.
Present.
Commissioner Marcy Winower.
Present.
Commissioner Erica Zapata.
Present.
Student Commissioner Ananya Akaraju.
Present.
Assembly Member James Ramos. And Senator Ben Allen. Now we're going to go, oh, yes, Commissioner Danlard. Now we're going to move to item B. Now we're going to go to this flag salute. Commissioner Akaraju will now lead us in the salute to the flag. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is item 1C, overview of the agenda. The agenda today remains unchanged and includes approve September 17, 2025 IQC minutes, approve and recommend the State Board of Education, SBE, the Instructional Materials Review and Content Review Experts for the 2026 English Language Arts, English Language Development Instructional Materials Follow-Up Adoption, K-8. Hold a public hearing on draft personal finance curriculum guide, and approve and recommend to the SBE the draft personal finance curriculum guide. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Item D, approval of the minutes for the following meetings. September 17th, 2025. The public comment for this agenda item is now open. Please follow the instructions on the screen if you would like to give comment on the minutes. You have the minutes of September 17th, 2025 IQC meeting before you. If you have substantive changes, please present them now. If there are minor changes not affecting the content, please email them to Denise Figueroa, IQC Liaison. While we are waiting for any members of the public to call in, do any commissioners have concerns or questions related to the draft minutes? Is there any public comment?
For your access code followed by the
To approve the minutes?
The motion has been made by Commissioner Lanning. Is there a second to the motion?
I second the motion.
The motion has been seconded by Commissioner Regosa. Is there any discussion of the motion? I now call for a vote. All in favor? All opposed? Any abstaining from voting?
The motion passes.
Next item is 1E, my chair report. I do not have a chair report for today. Next item is 1F, report of the executive director.
Thank you so much, Chair Guerra, and good morning, commissioners. Good morning to our State Board of Education liaisons joining us via Zoom, Vice President Glover Woods and Dr. Lewis, and also welcome to Board Member Olkin here at this meeting. I know it's unusual to hold an IQC meeting in December instead of November. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, though, I greatly appreciate your flexibility in scheduling to meet the timing of our projects. I also want to take a moment to recognize the native land that we're congregating on today. This is the ancestral land of the Nisenan people, stewards of what is known now as Sacramento. I have a few Seaford-related items to share with you today. One project update that may be of interest to you is the Curriculum Guidance Study from Assembly Bill 121 of 2025, Chapter 8. Funds to contract with one or more research or nonprofit organizations to study the processes of which other states develop curriculum guidance, and to make recommendations about how to improve and streamline California's processes. We've successfully established our grant with the Marin County Office of Education to lead the process in consultation with the CDE and the State Board of Education. As of today, Marin has concluded a request for proposal, and based on an evaluation of all of the proposals submitted and in consultation with the Executive Director of the State Board of Education, we've collectively identified WestEd as the research organization to perform this work. We'll be kicking off that work with WestEd next week, and we're excited. We're thrilled to see what recommendations for streamlining California's curriculum process may look like. And pivoting to mathematics, the Seaford staff is currently working with content developers to complete the edits and corrections that have been identified by your instructional material reviewers and content review experts. And in addition, the CD has been involved in planning sessions to help build out the mathematics network that was created and initiated in the recent trailer bill. The sessions have involved representatives of multiple math-related state initiatives with a focus on eliminating any kind of duplicative work and identify purpose and goals of that new network. And lastly, you're going to hear presentations and have action today on items related to personal finance and the 2026 English Language Arts, English Language Development Follow-Up Adoption. I'd like to highlight the result of the fantastic outreach that the department has conducted to recruit reviewers. There are 267 applications before the IQC today, more than we had for math. Those applications have a great representation of expertise. Over 76% of applicants have taught TK to 2, 74% have taught grades 3 through 5, and over half of the applicants have experience teaching grades 6 through 8, totaling about 52% of the pool. All right, so for fear of spoiling the rest of the meeting, I'm going to conclude my report there and hand it back over to you, Chair Guerra.
Thank you, Dr. Torres. Next item is next item is report of the State Board of Education. Board Member Glover Woods and Lewis will provide us an update.
Thank you, and good morning, IQC commissioners. I'm so excited to be able to join you virtually today. I just wanted to share a bit of a recap from our November 2025 State Board of Education meeting. Some things that may be of interest are you. First of all, we had a 2-day meeting, and during day 1, we approved the recommendations for appointments to the Advisory Commission on Charter Schools, ACCS, the Advisory Commission on Special Education, and the California Practitioners Advisory Group, and of course, our new IQC members. So newly appointed commissioners who we will welcome at the January IQC meeting are Rebecca Lewis, who is a curriculum coordinator from Whitmore Elementary School District, Julie Goldman, director at San Diego County Office of Education, Bonnie Sides, who's a teacher on special assignment at Oxnard School District. And we also approved a student member who will start September 1, 2026. Her name is Rebecca Yang, and she attends the Orange County School of the Arts from Orange County Office of Education. So we are quite excited about those new commissioners and the new student commissioner who will come on board. Before I go into the State Board of Education student member information, I do want to pause and thank those who are IQC commissioners who are concluding their term, and really want to lift up to you Commissioners McAfee, Reyna Guerra, and Winnower for the hard work and the dedication that you have given to the IQC Commission. Know that your imprint will be felt ongoing for a generation of students in California. Continuing on with the report from the State Board of Education meeting, I also would like to share with you that we had 3 finalists for the position of the 2026-27 student board member for the State Board of Education. We had, again, a phenomenal group of students that applied. We had over 94 applicants that did apply for the student SBE member position. And from those, we had opportunity to interview 6 and narrow down to 3 that will move forward to the governor for his consideration for appointment. So those 3 students who will move forward for consideration as the 2026-27 SBE student member are Elizabeth Flores from Otay Ranch High School in the Sweetwater Union High School District, which is located in San Diego County. We have Ayan Hanif from Monte Vista High School, which is in the San Ramon Valley Unified School District in Contra Costa County. And we had Justin Petty from Del Oro High School in the Placer Union High School District in Placer County. So those students, again, will move forward to the governor's office, and the governor's office will make a determination on who will be appointed as the 2026-27 student SBE member. Also, during our board meeting, we heard some phenomenal proposals from the participants of the 2025 SABE conference. And just as a reminder, each November, student delegates have an opportunity to present on issues that are important to them and that reflect their research and discussion at that conference. So the topics that were shared and the presentations that were provided to the board were aligned to the following topics: transparency in district budgeting and goals, providing inclusive opportunities for students with special education, AI in education, civic education and advocacy opportunities, opportunity and achievement gap, mental health awareness, and also equitable post-secondary counseling. If you would like to take a look at the full reports, please feel free to go to the SBE page under CDE with the information from the November State Board of Education meeting. Please know that CDE and SBE staff working with our current student member, Vanessa Ejike, may review and develop responses to the proposals that were presented to us, which could be considered at future SBE meeting if they are within its jurisdiction. And I will just kind of lift up, I know we're having conversation around the personal finance curriculum, and that was one of the topics that came from a previous SABE conference and previous presentations to the board. I believe it might have been about 2 or 3 years ago. So just to let you know, and for any students that might be listening or watching the recording, the board does take very seriously the proposals that do come forward, and you never know how those proposals will then find themselves into actual curriculum and policy. Lastly, I would like to share with you that on day 1, we heard informational topics related to California assessments as well as career technical education standards. And we also had a study session related to the California Differentiated Assistance System. We also voted to adopt the proposed criteria and guidance for the selection or development of literacy professional development programs. And this guidance will be used as the foundation for evaluating program submissions this spring for consideration for inclusion on CDE's new online list to be published this fall. And commissioners, you know, you guys will be very integrated into that work. Lastly, on day 2, perhaps the most exciting item for the IQC is that we did move forward with approving the 64 programs that were recommended by the IQC for the mathematics instructional materials adoption. We also approved the new guidance document to support the ELA/ELD instructional materials follow-up adoption. And please know that that document is meant to support publishers and developers and reviewers in applying the criteria in the 2014 framework based on evolving research and best practices. So today, based on your recommendations, the SBE will consider the instructional material reviewers and content experts for appointment at the January meeting. And we look forward to continuing the journey with you as we work toward an anticipated adoption in 2026. We look forward to another busy and productive 2026 year. And that concludes my report. I turn it back over to Chair Guerra and the rest of you that are there. Thank you so much for listening to our update today.
Thank you, Board Member Glover Woods. Next is item 1H, 2026 English Language Arts, English Language Development, Instructional Materials Follow-Up Adoption, TK8 Guidance. Public for this agenda item is now open. Please follow the instructions on the screen if you would like to speak. Item H, 2026 English Language Arts, English Language Development, ELA/ELD Instructional Materials Follow-Up Adoption, TK8 Guidance. I will now turn the meeting over to Education Programs Consultant, Kyle Petty.
Good morning. Hello, Commissioners. I'm Kyle Petty. I am an Education Programs Consultant in the Standards and Curricular Guidance Unit at the CDE. My administrator is Jennifer Bentley. She won't be joining us today, but I'm here to discuss the recently adopted guidance to support the English Language Arts, English Language Development, Instructional Materials Follow-Up Adoption. I'm going to go over just a brief background, and then I'll talk about the organization of the document. There's a lot in there, so I have a lot to say, but I'll do my best to go quickly, okay? The guidance came about through Assembly Bill 121, the Education Omnibus Trailer Bill. However, more than the results of a singular bill, the guidance is situated at the center of the state's literacy initiatives, including Governor Newsom's Golden State Literacy Plan and new statute called out in Assembly Bill 1454. So for some background on the development, I'll summarize Section 89 of AB 121, and this bill appropriated funding to the Superintendent of Public Instruction to allocate to the Marin County Office of Education, the administrative agent for the California Collaborative for Educational Excellence, to select an agency to develop guidance to support the follow-up adoption and subsequent implementation of ELA/ELD instructional materials. In August 2025, after reviewing proposals according to defined criteria in the legislation and upon consultation with CDE staff and the Executive Director of the State Board of Education, Marin County Office of Education awarded West Ed with the grant funding to develop the guidance. In its accepted proposal, West Ed identified the English Learner Success Forum as the subcontracting agency to provide specialized advisory services on multilingual learning needs and ensure that the guidance is aligned with existing criteria that adequately address English learner students' linguistic and cultural needs. AB 121 called for guidance that evaluates and includes materials that focus on teaching specific skills and standards that are a subset of the entire ELA/ELD framework and clearly designate which standards they effectively address. The goal being to enable LEAs to adopt a set of materials that in combination address all state standards and components of the framework. Per legislation, the guidance also aligned to evidence-based means of teaching foundational reading skills, which include explicit systematic instruction in print concepts, phonological awareness, phonics and word recognition, and fluency, attending to oral language development, vocabulary and background knowledge, and comprehension, including tiered supports for pupils with reading difficulties, English learner students, and pupils with exceptional needs. AB 121 also stipulated that guidance conform to the ELA-ELD framework, including the 5 key themes articulated therein. That's foundational skills, language development, content knowledge, meaning making, and effective expression. And that it incorporate media literacy content. Additionally, AB 1255 enacted this year required consideration in the next instructional materials adoption to meet the needs of newcomer students. And so this consideration is also included in the guidance. All right, so let's look at how the guidance is organized. With new research emerging since the adoption of the 2014 ELA-ELD framework, there's a deeper understanding of how literacy develops. And as research continuously evolves, we know we need to ensure our literacy practices keep pace with those advances to best serve California students. So this knowledge has powerful implications for the kinds of instructional approaches that we need to see in California classrooms. So the guidance recognizes that. The first way that the follow-up adoption guidance seeks to address this is through part 1 of the guidance document, which synthesizes research from the past decade on evidence-based literacy instruction. For each component that you see on this slide, the guidance not only provides concise, useful information from this research foundation, but it addresses the impact of the research on the instructional materials. Part 1 provides a comprehensive review of recent research on evidence-based literacy instruction, including best practices for supporting the development of foundational skills and how to support comprehension through content-rich instruction that systematically develops vocabulary and background knowledge. It also has information on the interactive, dynamic, and reciprocal relationship of reading and writing, showing, for example, how explicit spelling instruction reinforces phonics learning, while writing about text deepens comprehension. The research emphasizes that all these components develop most effectively when integrated rather than isolated. The guidance also provides a research summary on tiered supports aligned with the multi-tiered system of support framework, or MTSS, drawing on research showing that students make the most progress when preventative measures and targeted interventions are integrated into a coherent system. The guidance addresses differentiation for students with reading difficulties, students with disabilities, including dyslexia, and English learner students. In addition, the guidance presents new research on instructional materials for English learner students, including a section on newcomer students, those students in dual language programs, and English learner students with disabilities. Part 1 includes guidance on media literacy instruction, which was called out in the legislation, and the integration and addressing of topics of digital citizenship and critical evaluation of sources and age-appropriate media analysis, just to name a few. Finally, Part 1 includes developmental readiness research on transitional kindergarten, play-based learning and emergent literacy, universal supports for TK, and a connection to the preschool foundations. Each topic in Part 1 ties the implications of emerging research on high-quality instructional materials to the adoption of ELA-ELD instructional materials. And to realize these purposes in practice, the guidance recognizes that high-quality materials must be paired with robust implementation support, including effective professional learning. The foundation research in Part 1 provides the underlying structure for discussing updates to the 5 program types that are outlined in Chapter 12 of the ELA-ELD framework. So Part 2 includes an overview of the original 5 program types, a new program type 6 for transitional kindergarten, which responds to California's expansion of universal TK, as well as key modifications resulting from more current research since the 2015 instructional materials adoption. A significant change in this follow-up adoption is the introduction of a partial program submission process through which a subset approach, which is the language of the legislation, for programs types 1, 2, and 3 can be an option for local educational agencies. Program types 4 and 5 are unique program types for ELA intervention and specialized ELD. So this guidance clarifies components of these programs as well as important research and considerations. These include work that CDE has completed in the Literacy Roadmaps content blocks for English medium classrooms, California's universal screening requirements for K-2, and clarifications around integrated and designated ELD as they relate to Program 2 and Program 5. Specifically, Program Type 4, which was designed for intensive intervention in ELA for students in grades 4 through 8, has been significantly expanded to allow for submissions of intervention materials designed for use in grades 1 through 3 as well. This aligns with California's new universal screening requirements for early identification of reading difficulties and recognizes the critical window for early intervention. The objective of Program 4 continues to be accelerated progress that helps students gain substantial ground toward grade level proficiency. Program 5 continues to provide intensive English language development for students performing below grade level due to limited English proficiency. Perhaps most notably, the guidance defines, as I said, this 6th program type for instructional materials in TK. And this is aligned with the preschool through grade 3 learning foundations and the California Preschool Transitional Kindergarten Learning Foundations, the PTKLF. This specialized program type addresses the unique development and instructional needs of TK learners, providing age-appropriate materials that build foundational language and pre-literacy skills. Program 6 also includes embedded support components for developmentally appropriate universal supports rather than targeted remediation, developmentally appropriate universal screening, and play-based learning with literacy foundations. Okay, as I mentioned, a significant change to this adoption is the subset approach. I've said partial program submissions and subset, those two terms can be confusing. So partial programs is how I contrast to a full program adoption, which is what we had for program types 1, 2, and 3 in 2015. The subsets is the approach that's outlined in legislation that allows the selection of partial programs and when compiled together, create a full curriculum. So just to clarify there. This subset approach I'll go over now. Program types 1, 2, and 3, again, LEAs can choose to select from SBE adopted partial programs and subsets of materials as outlined in the legislation. There are two options for program types 1, 2, and 3. Publishers or content developers can submit comprehensive ELA, ELD, or biliteracy programs that address all the California Common Core state standards for ELA literacy at 1 or more grade levels, as was the option in 2015. New this time, publishers and content developers can choose to submit a partial program aligned to select California Common Core ELA literacy standards and address 1 or more complete strand from those standards. So the strands are reading, writing, speaking and listening, and language. And then within the reading strand, we have the foundational skills domain, which is K5, and so that's the 5th partial option. There's a little asterisk on the slide there next to K8 because the K5 is where foundational skills apply. So importantly for programs type 2 and 3, while subset options are available for the ELA standards, as I just mentioned, all materials submitted for program types 2 and 3 that are strand submissions must address all California ELD standards for their selected grade levels. So there's no subset or partial options for ELD standards. I think that's it. So moving on. Part 3 of the guidance document addresses the impact of the research on the existing evaluation criteria. These criteria comprise Chapter 12 of the ELA-ELD framework and are used to review and recommend standards and framework-aligned materials for SBE adoption. The updates in the guidance reflect both current evidence-based literacy research and the legislative requirements from AB 121 and AB 1454. Since Title V regulations section 9517.1D Note, the follow-up adoption shall be based on the curriculum framework and evaluation criteria used for the primary adoption. The guidance does not revise the criteria, but provides additional considerations to augment and clarify aspects of the criteria to reflect new and updated research. They also define the parameters as authorized in legislation for LEAs to adopt those partial programs. This is not an exhaustive list, but I'm going to share an overview of how the guidance supports or augments the evaluation criteria. So the partial program subset impacts multiple criteria throughout the categories. We'll start with category 1. ELA and ELD alignment with the standards include guidance on decodable text usage, explicit oral language development, media literacy integration, and differentiation requirements by English learner typology. For category 2, the update clarifies the 180-day requirement with designated ELD, and it broadens the connections with tiered supports in the MTSS framework, among other things. For category 3, assessment, there's new information on universal screening requirements for TK3 with reference to California's approved list of screening instruments and progress monitoring within MTSS tiers. For category 4, universal access, you'll find explicit MTSS tiered support requirement and specific provisions for newcomer students. There's updated guidance on instructional practices for students with dyslexia. As you know, the dyslexia guidelines were published after the 2014 framework and after the 2015 adoption. There are also added differentiations for students identified as high achieving or gifted, culturally and linguistically responsive approaches, and home language asset-based approaches. And in category 5, instructional planning and support, there's added guidance for the subset materials, professional teaching requirements for MTSS and culturally responsive instruction, family engagement strategies for diverse populations, and instructional planning for media literacy. Additionally, Program 6 has its own evaluation criteria maps aligned with the preschool through grade 3 learning foundations and the PTKLF, recognizing that TK learners require distinct approaches aligned with early childhood development principles. This final section, Part 4, provides implementation guidance for publishers and content developers submitting materials for the follow-up adoption. However, as you know, the guidance is also designed to support LEAs, so Part 4 specifies the ways LEAs can evaluate partial programs and combine those selections to build a comprehensive program from those subset submissions. There's also information for professional development planning around new requirements and support for coordination with district screening instrument selection. The guidance also includes 3 appendices. The draft appendices include the standards maps for the subset partial program submissions. They include updated evaluation criteria maps for programs 1 through 5 that reflect the new guidance, and evaluation criteria and maps aligned to the PTKLF for program type 6 transitional kindergarten. These tools, which are referenced in the document with links to the drafts, are posted alongside the approved maps from 2015, and they are on the CDE webpage for the ELA-ELD instructional materials adoption. They will drive the training and the review process for the 2026 ELA-ELD follow-up adoption, as I'm sure you're all interested in that process, and how they're intended for publishers and content developers submitting programs, as well as for reviewers who use them to evaluate instructional material submissions across all program types and for each approach, be it partial program or a full program, across all those program types. As I mentioned earlier, program type 4, I want to go back to this just for a moment. That's a unique program type for ELA intervention. It's been significantly expanded, as I said, to include now grades 1 through 3 instead of just for students in 4 through 8. And so the objective of program 4 continues to be accelerated progress that helps students gain substantial ground toward grade level proficiency. And the updated guidance further emphasizes how submissions in program type 4 can be submitted and will be reviewed. The standards map for program type 4 includes the standards that in 2014 and 15 we designated to provide an accelerated intensive intervention pathway that supports the needs of students whose academic performance is 2 or more years below grade level. So publishers and content developers can now submit a single grade level intervention program, which could cover all grade level standards in program type 4 standards map up to and including the grade level that they submit for. More standards than what is included in the map currently can be obviously included in the program, but they will not be part of the review conducted. We are not able to change any of those foundational documents in the framework as this is a follow-up adoption. CDE staff recommended to the SBE last month that they adopt the guidance with the provision that they grant the CDE and SBE the ability to make any necessary revisions, including those needed for technical edits and clarity and accuracy. And so I think I wanted to emphasize that I went over program type 4 just now to say that that's one of the areas where there will be some technical edits if you were paying attention at the board meeting and saw the early draft of that. So representatives from WestEd and CDE presented a version of this presentation last month on November 6th to the SBE. The board adopted the draft guidance and delegated authority to the SBE to work with CDE staff to make necessary revisions, again, to ensure content reflects the conversation that we had last month and that we prepare a document that is professionally edited and ready for publication. As we started to understand the scope of this guidance and how it would affect the adoption process, our first action was to provide the publishers with more time to digest and understand the research and the broadened approach to this follow-up adoption, including the updates to program types, the addition of the TK program, and the parameters around submitting those partial programs. And I say that with this timeline on the slide to say that the SBE approved our request to allow for that time, altering the date of the publisher invitation to submit meeting from November 13th, which would have been 1 week after the SBE adopted the guidance. It will now be held on January 29th. And this decision means that we can change the publisher intent to submit forms due date to February 11th. And so this gives our team in Seaford more time to familiarize publishers and content developers with the guidance and through additional publisher bulletins and also a webinar so that they can make an informed decision on participation in the adoption. We believe that this will increase the number of programs that will ultimately be submitted for consideration. Additionally, WestEd and Seaford have been developing, as I mentioned, a webinar to discuss the guidance and provide further instructions for publishers and content developers considering submitting those materials for adoption. The webinar has been advertised to publishers directly and content developers and will occur on December the 19th, 2026. Additionally, WestEd, yep, that's the same exact paragraph. I'm not going to read it again. So next steps. I appreciate all of your time bearing with me today on this. Thank you. The Seaford team is looking forward to the adoption, and we continue to incorporate this guidance as we plan training. And as you know, training isn't training without reviewers. So this is my segue. The SBE is set to appoint reviewers in January 2026, and a bit later, the ELA-ELD Subject Matter Committee will meet to review the list of recommended instructional materials reviewers and content review experts who've answered our call to participate in the follow-up adoption that this guidance was designed to support. And I also want to appreciate those of you who committed to the training and the deliberations. Whether on time or after the date, it's very much appreciated. You're still welcome to participate. So with that, I conclude my presentation.
Thank you for the presentation. Are there any questions or comments on the presentation?
I do. Hi, Kyle. Thank you for your presentation. I'm wondering, can you clarify the difference between a partial program and a subset approach? I'm understanding it as a partial program versus a whole program, but the subset approach allowing for a partial program that would equal a whole program?
So the subset term allows for LEAs to choose from partial programs that when combined could create their full curriculum. And so that is the subset approach that they called for in the legislation. In order to achieve that subset approach, we have to have a number of partial program submissions that can be chosen to collectively create their curriculum. And so the partial programs is the language that we're using for, as again, in contrast to a full basic program, which was the option in 2015. So the partial is the strand-based grade level or multiple grade level submission. The subset approach would be what an LEA would look at state-adopted partial programs and say our subsets are going to be across these partial programs. There's a little bit of like some linguistic gymnastics that I'm trying to do there
Okay,
to
yes.
explain that, but
Thank you so much.
certainly.
So in theory, if there aren't publishers who submit subsets that make up a full program, then a full program would not be able to be created? Is that what I'm hearing?
If the selection was winnowed to the list of SBE adopted programs,
Yes, so let's,
SBE adopted partial programs could not combine together to create a full curriculum.
that is a possibility with this adoption.
It is absolutely a possibility with this adoption,
Okay,
follow-up adoption.
follow-up adoption. Yes. Yes.
If you're not the person to answer this, then feel free to say, but
Left elbow, like, could really, Mike's right there. If it's not me, he's right there.
no, I'm just wondering, when you said that was the language of the legislation to have this approach, do you know what problem, what they were attempting to solve for what issue? Like, what does this allow that wasn't previously allowed?
So my understanding would be that if we looked at what LEAs are actually doing, they're selecting reading programs or phonics programs or early literacy programs that are considered supplemental, not considered a full basic program, and that together that they are already perhaps using these to supplement areas of a full curriculum. And so this would allow the state board to have a list of those programs that have been submitted and evaluated at the state level that would maybe reinforce the choices that are being made. I'm not sure if that satisfies the question, but Mike, if you want to add anything, you can.
No, that was a perfect answer. It was an ability for the State Board of Education to have an approved list that LEAs can select from.
Even without using an elbow?
Okay, I have one more question about, you mentioned biliteracy. How are, they didn't see in the criteria, specific criteria around that? Is it in there? Then I just missed it.
So the program type 3 is a basic biliteracy program. So all of the criteria that apply to program type 3 applied in 2015 for a full biliteracy program, which would be alignment with the standards in ELA literacy at the grade level, the ELD standards at the submitted grade levels. And the subset approach would be the same. I mean, you would just have to choose the strand, right? If you're a publisher or content developer, you would choose the strand that you wanted to submit for. So the criteria it's all based on the criteria from 2015.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Vang, were you going to say something?
I just wanted to, I guess, just clarify my own understanding. Because this is a follow-up adoption, whatever gets recommended or approved is then added on to what's already currently on the list.
That's correct.
So with that, then LEAs can also just stay with whatever they may already have, and then with the partial, whatever, or subset, whatever is now added to the list, they can choose from that and then add it to what they're currently using. So it's not, so in the goal really is they still end up with a comprehensive type of program, but now they have the flexibility and the options to pick and choose what's added to that. And is that my understanding correct?
That's correct. Oftentimes what we find is that LEAs have their own adoption cycles, regardless of what the state board's cycle ends up being, and that they, again, legally can choose whichever program that they want to, whether it's on the list or not. But the fact that there will be more programs added to the list provides that added level of, well, it's cost effective for them. They don't have to conduct their own local adoptions, but they also have the state board approved stamp on there. And yes, it will be added to the 2015 state adopted list. Thank you.
Denise, is there any public comment?
There's none.
The public comment line for this item is now closed. Next is item I, 2026 ELA ELD Instructional Materials Follow-up Adoption. Public comment for this agenda item is now open. Please follow the instructions on the screen if you would like to speak. Item I, 2026 ELA Instructional Materials Follow-up Adoption, TK8. I will now turn it over to Executive Director Dr. Torres.
Thank you so much, Chair Guerra. Commissioners, in July of 2025, after we shared with you a draft schedule of significant events and the draft reviewer application, the State Board of Education took your recommendation and initiated a follow-up adoption of English Language Arts, English Language Development instructional materials for a transitional kindergarten through grade 8. Since then, we've worked with WestEd to develop that guidance to support the follow-up adoption, as you heard from Kyle's presentation, while simultaneously planning the follow-up adoption proceedings themselves. With the board's adoption of the guidance in November, we've started implementing the updates to our invitation to submit meeting, as well as the plans for reviewer training in April. Today, Seaford staff would like to update you on the process so far for planning for the adoption so that you know what to expect in the months and the year ahead as it relates to this adoption. With the mathematics adoption fresh in our minds still, you all know the important role that the IQC does play and its commissioners play in its success. With all that said, here to present on the upcoming adoption process is Seaford's publisher liaison, Mr. David Almquist.
On? Yes? Great. Good morning, board members present in the ether, commissioners, Chair Guerra, Executive Director Torres. My name is David Almquist. I am the publisher liaison for the department. So what does that mean? I help the publishers and the content developers participate in the process by sharing with them, well, everything. So, get the screen going. Okay, so we're going to take a few minutes, just a couple of minutes, to go over the process of this 2026 English Language Arts, English Language Development, Instructional Materials Follow-up Adoption. So here's a simple graphic showing the linear progression of the complete process. In July, the IQC and the SBE approved all the documents necessary to launch the follow-up adoption. While AB 121 was signed at the end of June, this being the bill to mandate the additional guidance and the acceptance of partial program submissions, so many of the details around the adoption remained unclear until WestEd developed the guidance to support local adoption of the ELA, ELD instructional materials and to support this state-level adoption process. With the board's recent approval of the guidance in November, Seaford staff are working feverishly to prepare publishers and content developers for the submission process by providing all the necessary information they need to organize full or partial programs to submit for consideration of recommendation by you, the IQC members, and then for the approval of the State Board of Education. The next steps in the process, in brief, are to hold the invitation to submit meeting at the end of January, to collect the publisher intent to submit forms in early February, to prepare, and then to prepare for the review of the programs that will be submitted in May. To prepare for that, we begin with your recommendation today of a list of reviewers, which will then go to the SBE for approval. In July, Seaford publicized the launch of the adoption process to publishers, instructional materials developers, and to the public. We've posted a curated list of frequently asked questions and answers, generated in large part by the questions we've received from the publishers and developers themselves. We're continuing to work on these as we're currently finalizing answers to many more outstanding questions. During August through October, we were very busy actively recruiting applicants for both instructional materials reviewers and the content review experts. Historically, recruitment has had its challenges. Educator work schedules, vacation, travel, getting substitutes, family, It's a huge ask for these reviewers to participate. And even from those who do ultimately agree to participate, we see a significant degree of reviewer attrition. So it's great news, the number that we have for you to consider today. So we've seen a huge interest, not only in the reviewers, but publishers are very interested in this. There is a great deal of interest, I can tell you. As in the math adoption, we are again able to offer our reviewers a stipend for their work, for the in-person days that they'll spend in April at the training session, and then in July at the reviewer deliberations here in Sacramento. Serving as a reviewer of multiple programs is a time-intensive undertaking, not just during those in-person days, but during the independent review process between May and July. We're very happy to be able to offer them a minimal stipend for their work. In a little while, you will consider the applications of over 200 reviewers and content review experts. The subject matter committee may discuss, this is your opportunity to discuss each of these applicants as you see fit for their qualifications and impartiality. And then the SMC will recommend to the full IQC a list of reviewers, which will then be recommended to the State Board of Education for consideration of appointment during their January meeting. The IQC will also make a recommendation for any additional facilitators who will help in the training session and in deliberations. State regulations require that you approve, that the board also approve any facilitators who are not current members of the Instructional Quality Commission. All of these recommendations you'll be making today will go to the board for its January meeting. Of course, CFRD will continue to work with publishers and developers who are frantically creating and finalizing ELA, ELD programs. As a part of this process, on December 19th, we will co-present a webinar along with WestEd to go over the guidance document in detail, specifically for the publishers and the developers. At the end of January, we'll hold our traditional invitation to submit meeting for publishers. And this meeting is more about the process and less about the content. Then publishers and developers must notify us by February 11th of their intention to submit a program and for which grade levels that they're going to submit. Once we receive these commitments from the publishers, we will then begin to assemble the reviewers into review panels and assign them programs to review. And then we will assign facilitators. Next slide, please. There we go. Okay, at that point, we'll know how many programs will be submitted and how many people on a review panel. And then in March, we will give you your assignments as to what panels you will be facilitating and what programs those panels will be reviewing. April 27th kicks off the reviewer training week at the DoubleTree Hotel here in Sacramento, same place we did the math. Shortly after that, on May 15th, all of the instructional materials programs are due from the publishers and developers to the reviewers and to all officials, state board members, and to you members of the IQC. I will survey you in the spring to let you know what program deliveries will look like and as to whether or not you wish to receive any copies of these programs for your own review. And just as a reminder, programs can come in print or in digital or a combination of both. It's entirely up to the publishers and the design of their individual programs. These programs will be reviewed independently by the reviewers between May 15th and the third week of July, when we will gather in person again here in Sacramento for the first week of deliberations. Because we expect a variety of submissions across 6 program types, including TK programs and partial programs, this will be followed by a second week of deliberations with all new reviewers and all new programs to be considered. What will be reviewed when? We don't know yet. We will know that by the training session in April. Deliberations conclude with a written report from each panel, a report of findings, regarding the criteria laid out in the ELA-ELD framework and clarified by the guidance. On August 12th, you will hold a non-action item meeting simply to receive any public comment on the review panel's reports of findings. At the September 2026 IQC meeting, you will use these panel reports, knowledge from your own personal reviews, and in consideration of any public comment to make a recommendation to the State Board about which programs to adopt and to add to the 2015 adoption list. In November 2026, the State Board will act upon these recommendations. So there you have it. There's the process in general for this follow-up adoption. Do you have any questions at all? Not one. Okay. All right. Well, then we will move onward to the reviewer applications. Thank you.
Thank you. Denise, is there any public comment?
There is none.
The public comment line for this item is now closed. Next is item 2, the English Language Arts, English Language Development Subject Matter Committee. Commissioner Zepeda?
All right, I call the English Language Arts, English Language Development Subject Matter Committee to order. If you are a member of the English Language Arts, English Language Development Subject Matter Committee, please put your nameplate face up. If you are not on this committee, please place your nameplate face down. The members of the Subject Matter Committee are myself, Vice Chair Vang, and Commissioner Daniller, Commissioner Durant, Commissioner Hernandez, Commissioner Hicks, and Commissioner Regosa. We also have Seaford staff for ELA-ELD Subject Matter Committee, Education Programs Consultants Kyle Petty, Alejandro Hernandez, David Almquist, and Joanna Harder. Our discussion today is focused on the 2026 ELA-ELD Instructional Materials Follow-Up Adoption. In July 2025, the California State Board of Education scheduled an ELA-ELD Instructional Materials Follow-Up Adoption for 2026, pursuant the Education Code, Section 60227. In its invitation to submit, the State Board of Education expanded its consideration to include publisher and content developer submissions for instructional materials programs designed for transitional kindergarten through grade 8. The initiation of the follow-up adoption was ratified when the governor signed Assembly Bill 1454. And as we learned in an earlier presentation, the State Board of Education on November 6, 2026, adopted guidance to support the follow-up adoption. The guidance was developed by WestEd pursuant to Assembly Bill 121, which directed the California Department of Education to partner with one or more research organizations, institutions of higher education, or other nonprofit organization with the expertise and evidence-based literacy instruction to support the follow-up adoption. The 2026 ELA-ELD Instructional Materials Follow-Up Adoption is aligned to the State Board of Education adopted ELA-ELD framework, including the evaluation criteria in Chapter 12. Like a full basic adoption, the follow-up adoption process is established by state statutes and regulations that support the goals of transparency and fairness in the process and the involvement of teachers and other educators in the review of instructional materials. For Section A 2026 ELA-ELD Instructional Materials Follow-Up Adoption, our ask today is to make recommendations to the full commission on the instructional material reviewers, sometimes referenced as IMRs, and content reviewer experts, sometimes referenced as CREs. A digital copy of the item was provided for our review. The full IQC will later take action on the item to recommend the reviewers to the State Board for final action at its January 2026 meeting. Our action is requested to provide a recommendation of applicants for program reviewers for the 2026 ELA-ELD follow-up adoption. For the purpose of this discussion, reviewers include content review experts and instructional material reviewers. Together, these groups comprise the panels that will review and deliberate the submitted materials. The body of reviewers before us will review the same materials, but the CREs required to have a master's degree or higher and 5 or more years of experience with and expertise in standards-based educational programs and practices, or a doctoral degree and expertise in evidence-based means of teaching language and literacy. The California Code of Regulations, Title V, Section 9512A, authorizes the state board to appoint these reviewers to serve in advisory capacity to the IQC and board during the adoption of instructional materials. To help us with this item, California Department of Ed staff will facilitate our discussion of the applicants.
Thank you, SMC Chair Zepeda. There is one thing I would like to clarify before I begin. There was something we didn't catch in David's presentation that I want to correct. The list of facilitators goes to the State Board of Education for approval. It's not part of your item today, and this also follows the same practice as we did for mathematics this past year as well. So that was just an error that we didn't catch in the notes, so I apologize for that. Okay. All right. Just over a year ago, the commission gathered to consider IMR, the instructional materials reviewers, and content review experts for the 2025 mathematics adoption. You may all remember that process, and I'll remind the SMC members that IMRs and CREs serve as advisors to the IQC and the SBE in the review of instructional materials submitted for the adoption. As has been stated, a majority of IMRs, as stated in the Title V Regulations, Section 9512, shall be teachers who teach students in kindergarten through grades 1 through 12, broadened for the follow-up adoption to encompass TK. They must have a professional credential under California law and have experience with, and expertise in standards-based educational programs and practices in English language arts, literacy, English language development, and bilingual and/or multilingual education. The Curriculum Frameworks Instructional Resources staff further specified this expertise in the reviewer application, which you approved in July of this year, 2025. It included, but was not limited to, the following: language, including vocabulary development, oral language development and listening skills, direct, systematic, explicit instruction and foundational skills, such as print concepts, phonological awareness, phonics and word recognition and fluency, integrated reading and writing, and comprehensive ELD. Additionally, Seaford staff sought educators with experience in providing education and/or tiered supports to pupils with reading difficulties, experience in providing instruction to English learner students, experience in providing instruction to students with disabilities, and experience in early childhood development and early literacy. Of course, other IMRs may be administrators, parents, local school board members, teachers not described in the above, or members of the public. I'll reiterate, since it's different from this content area, the CRE applicants must have a master's degree or higher, and at least 5 years of experience with, 5 or more years experience with, and expertise in standards-based educational programs and practices, or a doctoral degree and expertise in evidence-based means of teaching language and literacy. For this follow-up adoption, we've been working on a very rapid timeline, but nonetheless, CDE staff was able to complete a strong recruitment effort that included, but was not limited to, a letter from the State Superintendent of Public Instruction emailed to county and district superintendents and administrators, CDE listservs like the ones we share with curriculum coordinators, and newsletter publications from the Early Education Division, the Professional Learning Support Division, the Multilingual Support Division, the Special Education Division. We reached out through the Association of California School Administrators and the Commission for Teacher Credentialing, and flyers were shared with California superintendents. Curriculum and Instructional Steering Committee for ELA, ELD, and the Sacramento County Office of Education, ELA Literacy Network. We also reached out to IMRs and CREs who served on the 2025 Mathematics Instructional Materials Review and asked them to share the opportunity with their colleagues too. CDE has conducted an analysis of all of these applications and resumes submitted during the application period. The applications included a place for reviewers to indicate where they have a potential conflict of interest. As in previous adoptions, CDE consulted with its attorneys to review these disclosures. In order to serve as an IMR or CRE, appointees must not have a disqualifying interest in a publishing company pursuant to the California Code of Regulations, Title II, Section 18730. The requirement most relevant to this adoption is that no IMR or CRE should receive any income from a publishing company in excess of $500 or for the 12 months prior to when they will be making the recommendations on the program submitted for adoption. Before you are the applications and resumes that were received between August 1 and October 30th, 2025. The 91-day recruiting period, there was a 91-day recruiting period. These 225 applications to serve as instructional materials reviewers and 42 applications to serve as content review experts are in front of you. I will go through the applications in lots of 10, starting with the CREs. I want to point out that the CRE and IMR tables you're reviewing are organized by applicant ID number, and each table's numbers are sequential, ranging from lowest to highest. They do not necessarily increment by one. I'll begin with the first 10 candidates in the CRE table, submission ID numbers 5 through 64.
Are there any commissioner comments on these first 10 candidates?
This is not, it's more of a general, it's really more of a question. So the list that we are looking at now included, I think it was like 42 CREs, but in the application pool itself, there were actually more CREs that applied. So if you can, maybe clarify that for us.
Sure. There were people who identified themselves as content review experts in their applications, but they didn't necessarily meet the criteria per legislation. So that is why you will not see everyone who identified themselves as a CRE. So staff did go through very carefully for these recommendations. However, your discussion can be held and make a different recommendation to us.
Do we have any commissioner comments on the first 10? Or any more, I should say? Joanna, could you please continue with the next 10 candidates?
CRE applicant ID numbers 67 through 107.
And commissioners, please feel free if you have any comments. Okay, Joanna, can we hear about the next 10?
CRE applicant ID numbers 113 through 180.
I did have a question on one. Do I just give you the number? Yes. Reviewer 159. I think in looking at that was possibly a disqualifying interest notation of publisher compensation. So that's just what I noted when I looked at that.
Can you state your concern again? I'm sorry.
The disqualifying interest, I believe the applicant noted that they received some type of publisher compensation as a contractor.
Thank you. So we did submit that to the legal division, and the feedback that we got was that the date of I believe it was the date of the compensation, and it had to do with the placement of that particular applicant on a panel, depending on the submission and the publisher that was submitting, publisher content developer that was submitting. But thank you. That doesn't settle it. I just wanted to say that was the answer that we got, and so as a member of the committee.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from commissioners? Joanna, can you continue?
CRE applicant ID numbers 195 through 253.
Are there any comments from the commissioners? Joanna, can you continue, please?
The last two will be CRE applicant ID numbers 256 and 258.
Any comments from our commissioners? All right, I believe we are ready to move on to the instructional materials reviewers.
All right, instructional material reviewers. After an analysis of qualifications, we are recommending 225 applicants as IMRs. Every state level adoption comes with a degree of reviewer attrition, and we estimate that we will likely need all qualified applicants. Regulations require that at least one IMR have expertise in English, in teaching English learners, and at least one have expertise in teaching students with disabilities on each panel. We anticipate needing one or more panels of TK and early literacy experts, and we believe these requirements will be met without difficulty with this selection that we have. I'll begin with the first 10 candidates in the IMR table. Applicant ID numbers 1 through 12.
Are there any comments on these recommended IMR candidates? Joanna?
Next are IMR applicant ID numbers 13 through 23.
Okay, any commissioner comments? All right, Joanna, next batch, please.
Next, applicants, IMR applicant ID numbers 24 through 36.
Okay, any comments from the commissioners? Okay. Joanna, the next IMR candidates, please.
IMR applicant ID numbers 37 through 48.
Any comments from our commissioners? All right, Joanna, the next.
IMR applicant ID numbers 49 through 59.
Any comments from our commissioners?
Hearing none. IMR applicant ID numbers 61 through 76.
Any commissioner comments on these recommended IMRs?
IMR ID numbers 77 through 86.
Any comments? Okay.
IMR candidate numbers 89 through 98.
Any comments on 89 through 98? Okay.
IMR candidates 99 through 111.
Any commissioner comments?
IMR candidates 112 through 123.
Any comments from our commissioners? No? Okay.
IMR candidates 124 through 134.
Any comments from our commissioners?
I did not see an application for 131. Did I just, there were a few actually that were, that I noticed that I didn't see the applications for, but it may just be that, yeah.
So if some are skipped, there were a handful, if numbers are skipped in the order, there were a handful that we received that they submitted 2 applications. One is an IMR, one is a CRE. So whichever one that they qualified for, we kept that application and remove the other one. So that's some of them. And then the other blanks you may see would be the ones that we have conflicts of interest. Okay. So those would be removed as well. I think there are only a total of 10 that we had to deal with in that manner.
Yeah.
Of total applications.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments from the commissioners? Okay, Joanna, if the next, please.
IMR applicants 135 through 147.
Okay, are there any comments from our commissioners? All right, thank you, Joanna.
Applicants 148 through 160.
Any comments? Great, thank you, Joanna.
Applicants 161 through 172.
Any comments from our commissioners? Great, thank you.
Applicants 173 through 185.
I do have a comment, maybe more of a consideration for applicant 181. I guess my first question really is, do we have, how many content experts, or do we have a number in mind, or can we move a IMR to a content expert?
That would be a discretion of your panel, yeah.
Okay, so for 181, from after my review, I would just say I would like for us to consider moving this candidate to a content expert with just this candidate has a strong DLI background, and so I feel like this is going to be a good support for just based on what we saw in the criteria and all that. So just for us to consider.
Can I ask what the practical implication is of that? Like, how does that change this person's role?
The roles are very similar. So the regulations do differentiate between the qualifications for an IMR and a CRE. Though oftentimes, I think that the goal is to have a CRE in each panel, and those CREs can mitigate questions that are about specific content or instructional practices that are more reflective of their advanced degrees and experiences. That said, we oftentimes have CREs there are multiple CREs maybe depending on application periods, and those CREs perform the exact same work as an IMR. So we can look into, if we're worried about whether or not this is a promotion, it's nothing like that. But in terms of staffing a panel with specific expertise, I defer to you on your decision there.
Do we know how many DLI content experts we have?
We could find that information, I think, relatively easily. In my initial review, I saw that there would be no shortage of IMRs or CREs that could attend to a panel on a biliteracy program, DLI included in considerations for that.
I'm wondering if the person did not apply for CRE, do you need to consult with them first, or can you just make that move and assign them as a CRE?
That's a good question. This person did apply as an IMR. This wasn't a reclassification based on expertise. Sometimes it's intent, sometimes maybe the perception of a CRE and having additional responsibilities that aren't spelled out in the application may be a reason for that, but that's a good question we should definitely consider.
Any further comments from the commission?
And just to clarify, I've served on multiple review panels, and I was also a CRE. And many times the roles are very similar, but there may be, during the deliberations, many times there may be questions that may come up. And so that's where a content expert's role is critical in that. And so to just help facilitate and move the deliberation along. So just something for us to consider. And that really is just a suggestion, but I do understand that if the applicant initially applied for IMR, then that's one thing. But just after my review, I just felt like pretty strong background. And it's not just that this particular person has the DLI background, but then it's the whole package. Like it's just a pretty strong background. So,
thank you, Commissioner. I will add that just in looking at this is similar to the question. This response would be similar to the question that we had about the total number of CREs on the applications, not reflecting the number on the tables that have been presented today. And that is a reflection of the language in the regulations about the advanced degree in the content area and the teaching experience on top of that. I'm not questioning the teaching experience of this candidate, but I would draw the attention to the degree and then invite you guys to have a discussion about how you'd want to proceed.
Any further comments from the commission?
do we want to have a discussion right now, or do we hold off?
I look to the chair.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to have the discussion now, yeah.
When I looked at the application, I did see that there was this applicant has a master's in education, but many times is pretty vague, and so I'm open to other direction, but I did notice that in the application. So from what my understanding of the qualification for CRE, that will qualify this candidate, but but then again, it's not clear as far as like the emphasis, and so sometimes the master's or the doctorate isn't as specific.
Is there more criteria involved beyond certification? I think I recall, did you say there were a number of years that were involved also in teaching experience?
5 or more.
5 or more? Are
Mhm.
those the only 2 criteria for CREs?
The master's degree needs to be in language and literacy, or language or literacy. And to emphasize, when we do the panel planning, we will look at distributing these specific skills of people among panels, not clumped into one, yeah, for the appropriate programs that they would be reviewing. So,
I think because the degree is not specific enough, then I'm fine with just leaving the applicant as an IMR. Just also, I want to acknowledge and just recognize that the candidate did apply for the IMR, so, yeah.
thank you, understood, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vang. Any other comments from the commission? Oh, Joanna, can we go for, I think, 186?
Mark candidates number 186 through 196.
I did have a question on applicant 187. So they're not receiving compensation, but they're on an advisory board for a publisher. So I didn't know if that would be, just a question on whether that is a conflict of interest or anything.
So again, the advisory guidance that we received from the legal department is that, division, excuse me, is that we would have to look at panel placement when we know officially who's submitting. But again, if this is a concern of the subcommittee, then it's the subcommittee's determination, right, based on the stated conflict of interest.
Would anybody like to join the discussion?
I also had that as a concern. However, because we don't know if they are going to submit, I think it may be too soon for us to say no to this applicant. So if, from what I heard, once we know who submits, then we can still go through a final round and revisit this, basically. Or is there an opportunity for us to come back to this and say, oh, these are the publishers that submitted, and then
At that level, it would be us with planning and placement.
Okay.
This group doesn't come back to you. Yeah, this group doesn't come back to you again. It goes to the state board in January,
Okay.
and that would be what we have to work with. But a placement could be. But if there is a concern, and we do see what programs we get, and it doesn't look feasible, we don't have. I mean, we can always not place them on a panel if that comes to be as well.
Yeah.
Joanna, is that something that we just need to recommend at this point, or it's just annotated on your end?
Well, yeah, I would think that part of the recommendation. I think that would be their recommendation, correct? That they would identify specific ones that they would not want accessed if there were conflicts that we find in the future.
But if
Okay.
do you create, I know we have this list, but is there a list where you would put, I noticed on some of the applications, the people who submitted put uncertain as to a conflict of interest on question 2, I believe, and like question 3. And so do you keep a running list of that? So when you do assign to the panels, okay.
Yes, we have a list of that we keep, that we watch. Yes, and if we find any conflicts, even that they didn't identify when we're looking through them, we would flag them as well. So we went beyond not just what they reported themselves. If we saw something as a conflict too, so yes, we do keep track of those.
Reflecting on the process that we just went through with math, the facilitator also has an opportunity, if they suspect that there might be a conflict of interest on their panel, to pursue that also. So I think there's an added layer of assurance.
I have a question actually about The 186, we were just talking about 187, correct? So for 186, so Greenfield Learning, they're not a publisher, but they're like a for-profit educational consulting company that in theory would be hired by school districts and potentially the state and whatnot. That type of affiliation isn't a conflict of interest?
They're not publishing materials, so that doesn't provide the conflict.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the basic answer.
All right, any further discussion for candidates 186 to 196? Okay, thank you, John.
198 to 211.
Any comments? All right, thank you.
IMR applicants 212 through 222.
Any commissioner comments? Okay, thank you.
IMR applicants 224 through 233.
Any commissioner comments? No? Okay.
IMR applicants 234 through 246.
Any commissioner comments? Next 10, Joanna.
Applicant numbers 247 through 261.
Any commissioner comments on these recommended IMRs? All right, thank you.
IMR applicants 262 through 271.
I did have a question. So I noted that 268 is listed twice. So it's one for World Languages Palmdale and Elementary Fresno. And then because I was looking for 276, so I believe Fresno was actually 276 from what I found, and then 268 was the Palmdale one, if I did that. Sorry.
268?
268 is listed twice, so it's World Languages and then the elementary. They're both 268.
The numbers listed twice.
The ID numbers listed twice.
Okay.
And then I think 268 for the elementary ELA manager is 267.
Okay.
Possibly. But that's what I found.
Okay, so there must have been an error there. I apologize. We're going to look into that because the copy we're looking at is correct. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. We'll look into that real quickly.
And then I also had a question on 269. There was a submission of a cover letter for a job application that was not for the actual IMR. So I had a question about, because they were applying for a job and that was submitted in their application for 269.
It was in addition to the?
Yeah, at the bottom, it was a job application.
Okay.
So I didn't know if that has any.
No, it does. I don't think so. Yeah. They really, really, really wanted to participate.
Are there any further discussions on IMR applicants 262 to 271? Okay, Joanne.
IMR applicants, the final group, 273 through 277.
Any comments from the commissioners? Okay, hearing none. right, thank you. Thank you, or I'm hearing none, correct? Okay, before I move on. All right, thank you, Joanna and Seaford team. We're gonna make a motion and take public comment in a moment, but before we continue, would staff please review the applicants that are being recommended?
The SMC will make a motion to approve the CDE recommended list of IMRs and CREs, except for any applicants or exceptions that you wanted to identify.
Is there any public comment?
Yes, we have 2 people in person and 1 on the phone. We will start with our in-person. Please begin.
Good morning. My name is Heather Calamise. I'm representing EdVoice. To support a rigorous adoption, follow-up adoption, we urge the Commission to focus on 2 priorities for the reviewer process. First, reviewers should have a deep knowledge of evidence-based literacy instruction. AB 1454 requires materials grounded in effective literacy practice, and reviewers with strong understanding of the science of reading are best prepared to assess alignment. The second recommendation is that the IQC provide high-quality, coherent training that reflects California's literacy priorities and the state's review rubric. Training should orient reviewers toward key features of a strong ELA, ELD materials and include calibration with sample materials so reviewers apply criteria consistently. With expert reviewers and strong training, California can ensure a high-quality, consistent adoption process, and thank you for the IQC for keeping the process moving, and appreciate your leadership on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Paula Kondrako, and I'm a kindergarten teacher in Hesperia, and I'm here representing the California Teachers Association. Upon reviewing the recommendation list, we noticed that out of the 267 people on the recommendation list, that only 45 of the individuals had teacher, the actual teacher in their current position title. That's roughly 17%. I did hear in the presentation that there were about 50%, I think, of the reviewers who've taught TK-8, and I heard, I think, majority. But it seems that only 17% are currently in the classroom. So CTA believes that all state-level advisory groups, policy groups, or commissions involving education or children will include a majority representation of teachers who are involved in the designated fields, and more specifically, CTA believes that teachers should constitute the majority of each state-level instructional materials evaluation panel. Only having 17% teachers is concerning. Unless you're in the classroom doing the work, it can be difficult to understand or predict how the implementation of the materials will look. Lessons and curriculum can look excellent on paper and may be grounded in current research, but may not always translate well to well-orchestrated lessons in the field. So though I've been an educator for 37 years, I've held roles in and out of the classroom in those years. My most recent return was to the classroom as being an instructional coach for 9 years, and it was a reminder how quickly we can forget those nuances of what it takes to successfully run a classroom. So while the expertise of all the other reviewers is definitely valuable, and so we're not saying that it's not, it's just the position of CTA that only having 17% of current classroom teachers is a bit concerning. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller with the last 44567, you may begin.
Good morning. My name is Mario Snow. I'm a Senior Policy Associate at Californians Together. I want to begin by appreciating the Commission for its intentional and thoughtful work and for putting forward a slate of reviewers and content experts with such deep multilingual learner experience. That representation is not only valuable, it's essential for a meaningful process focused on ELA, ELD materials that truly serve California's diverse student population. As this follow-up adoption moves forward, we encourage the Commission to continue centering the needs and assets of multilingual learners at every stage of the review. Doing so will help ensure that the materials approved for use across the state are culturally and linguistically responsive, aligned with rigorous learning expectations, and supportive of the full brilliance of multilingual learner students bring to our classroom. Thank you for your commitment to this work.
Thank you. That's all of our public comment.
I need a motion from a member of the English Language Arts, English Language Development Subject Matter Committee to recommend all of the CRE and IMR applicants, as just noted by staff, to the full Instructional Quality Commission.
I'll make a motion.
The motion has been made by Commissioner Hicks. Is there a second motion?
Seconded.
Oh, Danilo. The motion has been seconded by Commissioner Daniller. Is there any discussion of the motion or any final comments? We will now vote on the motion before the committee. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Anyone abstain from voting? Right?
The motion passes.
Thank you, commissioners. I adjourn this meeting of the English Language Arts, English Language Development Subject Matter Committee.
And we are actually going to take a break. So before we go into personal finance, we're going to take a 10-minute break. So if we can come back at 11:51. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. So the next item is item number 3, Personal Finance Subject Matter Committee. I will now turn the meeting over to Commissioner McGaffey, Chair of the Personal Finance Subject Matter Committee.
I call the Personal Finance Subject Matter Committee to order. If you are a member of the Personal Finance SMC, please put your nameplate face up. And if you are not on this committee, please put your nameplate face down. The members of the SMC are Vice Chair Bradshaw, Commissioner Hernandez, Commissioner Lanning, Commissioner Winower, Commissioner Cepeda, and I. Our discussion today is focused on the draft Personal Finance Curriculum Guide. For this item, the meeting will proceed as follows. First, we will hear a brief report from CDE staff on the public comment received during the month-long public comment period on the second draft of the curriculum guide. Second, we will hold a public hearing. Once the public hearing is concluded, we will have the opportunity to discuss any of the comments received during the public comment period and those comments provided during the public hearing today. We will also discuss and take action on the recommendations provided by staff regarding the public comments. Following that discussion, we will vote on 2 motions. First, to ask the full IQC to recommend the draft Personal Finance Curriculum Guide to the State Board of Education for review and adoption. And second, to ask the full IQC to delegate to the IQC chair and myself as a Personal Finance SMC chair the review and approval of any agreed upon changes to the draft curriculum guide before it is transmitted to the State Board. As you recall at our last meeting, the Commission approved a public comment period for the draft Personal Finance Curriculum Guide running throughout the month of October. I'd now like to ask Carrie Marovich, Education Programs Consultant, to give us an overview of the comments received and the table of staff recommendations.
Thank you, Commissioner McGaffey. As you said, my name is Carrie Marovich. I'm an Education Programs Consultant in the Standards and Curricular Guidance Unit. During October's public comment period, 25 comments were received by email on the draft Personal Finance Curriculum Guide. These 25 comments include 58 separate proposed edits or additions. You'll find each of these listed in Attachment A, along with an excerpt of the comment and a recommendation from staff regarding the proposed edits or additions. The full public comments can be viewed by visiting the box link at the top of Attachment A. The public comments we received were very thoughtful and came primarily from educators and those working in financial institutions. Many of them from financial professionals, many came from financial professionals seeking to provide expertise and resources in support of students in schools. You will have noticed that some of the public comments make recommendations that are outside the scope of the curriculum guide. The credentials required to teach the personal finance course required for graduation, for example, cannot be altered as they were expressly established by AB 2927. Similarly, the 12 overarching topics covered in the curriculum guide also originate in legislation, as does the requirement that personal finance be a standalone course, not combined with any other course, including economics. Public comments calling for these changes were deemed not actionable in the recommended action column. There are also many comments that request the inclusion of additional information, topics, or resources. In some cases, staff recommended these edits outright. For others, we recommend that it be left to the writer's discretion after conducting additional research or vetting to ensure that the additions are reasonable, given the scope and purpose of the curriculum guide and the timeline available. During your discussion today, staff will be available to answer any questions you may have about our recommendations. We also have here with us our lead writer, Jeff Allen, joining us here in person, and I believe we have one of our other contributors joining us via Zoom. So thank you for considering our recommendations, and we look forward to hearing your discussion.
It is now time for the public hearing. Members of the public, if you want to address the Personal Finance Subject Matter Committee today and have not signed up to speak at today's hearing, please do so at this time. There is a sign-in sheet at the back table. You can also provide public comment by calling the number on the screen. We will now convene the Personal Finance Subject Matter Committee public hearing on the draft Personal Finance Curriculum Guide. Public comment will be organized as follows. Denise will announce the in-person speakers in order. When your name is read, please stand up and form a line in front of the podium. If you have written materials for the Personal Finance SMC, please give the materials to Denise at the table to the left of the podium for distribution to the committee members. Denise will announce speakers calling in after the in-person speakers. Please state your name and affiliation as you begin. During the public hearing, speakers will be allowed 1 to 2 minutes to testify, depending on how many speakers have signed up. Please do not repeat what previous speakers have said. If you agree with a previous speaker, you can just state that and allow the next speaker to comment. Speakers may not yield their time to another speaker, nor may speakers add to their time by reading comments from another member of the public who is not present.
We do not have anyone signed up for the public hearing.
Are there any that are calling in?
No, sir.
I adjourn the Personal Finance SMC public comment hearing on the draft Personal Finance Curriculum Guide. I want to thank, well, I would thank any speakers and express their appreciation, but none did, so thank you. Now that we have held our public comment hearing, we will conduct any necessary discussion and then make our motions to recommend the draft curriculum guide to the full commission. We will use attachment A, the table of comments submitted during the public comment period, and the CDE staff recommendations to drive our discussion. Because of the volume of comments and suggested revisions, we may not discuss every comment listed in the attachment. However, we will spend as much time as needed to address all of your questions or concerns that relate to any of the recommended actions in the attachment. As we consider the recommended actions in the attachment, please keep in mind these principles. Changes to the draft Personal Finance Curriculum Guide must be consistent with the authorizing legislation, Assembly Bill 2927, be consistent with the guiding principles for this document adopted by the State Board of Education. Please keep in mind that the curriculum guide is intended to provide guidance for educators and local educational agencies implementing the new graduation requirement for personal finance established by AB 2927. That legislation requires that high school students, beginning with the graduating class of 2030-2031, complete a separate, standalone, one-semester course in personal finance that is prohibited from being combined with any other course. It requires local educational agencies to begin offering this course to all high school students beginning in the 2027-28 school year. Please also keep in mind that this document is not a scope and sequence or an instructional program. It provides background and context on the subject of personal finance, discussion of the 12 personal finance topics required by statute, guidance for implementation at district and site levels, recommendations for high-quality, no-cost instructional resources, professional learning guidance and opportunities, advice on instructional design and assessment, and ideas for outside enrichment, as well as family and community engagement. Let's get started. I propose that we review the comments SMC members wish to discuss using the table in attachment A to guide our discussion. Remember that the edits use the following notation. Actionable recommended means that the CDE is asking us to approve edits as specified by the commenter, and actionable not recommended are those CDE does not recommend making. The edits marked actionable writer's discretion are edits for which the CDE recommends allowing the writers to determine whether and how to include the additions, edits, and/or changes as stated in the public comment, as additional research and vetting may be required. Subject to our second motion, those edits will be reviewed by myself and Chair Guerra prior to prior to transmission of the draft curriculum guide to the state board. Finally, edits marked not actionable are edits where the CDE could not develop a recommendation either because the commenter did not provide enough specific information to make line edits to the curriculum guide, or because they asked for things that were not possible given statutory constrictions, timeline, or resources available to the writing team. We'll work from the assumption that we accept the CDE's recommended action for each edit unless someone wants to discuss the recommendation, offer a change, or is opposed to the recommendation being made. While only members of the Personal Finance SMC can vote on the recommended actions at this point, other commissioners and state board liaisons are welcome to join the discussion. We will begin with comments 1 through 5. Are there any recommended actions associated with these edits that you want to discuss or that you do not agree with in comments 1 through 5? Hearing none, I'll move on and feel free to call me back. Are there any recommended actions associated with these edits that you want to discuss or that you do not agree with in comments 6 through 10? Hearing none, are there any recommended actions associated with the edits that you want to discuss or that you do not agree with in comments 11 through 15? Hearing none, are there any recommended actions associated with these edits that you want to discuss or that you do not agree with in comments 16 through 20? Or did I already do 11? Yep, 16 through 20.
I just had a quick question for 16. The actionable recommended is including references to financial professionals, which includes CFPs as well as other financial experts. Is there like a criterion that would be needed for that, or is that just kind of, I know it says writer's discretion, but if that could be elaborated on what that would include or the options that would include?
So honestly, excuse me, at this point, what we are looking at is actually identifying where existing certified financial planners are within the document and including their full title and so forth, and making sure that they do appear, which I believe they already do, but do appear consistently in Chapter 7, the community outreach. At this point, I was not aware of trying to identify additional, but that is something that can be discussed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, because, there are different types of financial professionals, and I don't know if this is sort of above the level of of the high school grade, but I sort of put it into the category of know who's advising you, to know that there are different types and they have different financial incentives when they work with clients. And that, I think, is something that's even confusing for adults to understand. So if there is something that speaks to a particular profession, I think it would be good to elaborate on that and differentiate if that's, a focus of any part of the curriculum.
So if I could, thank you. And if I could, I would just say that I totally agree. And that is actually part of the curriculum, which again, we're not diving into curriculum development, but it is within that curriculum already. And just to kind of restate what I was saying before, we're trying to paint with a broad stroke there. So we're really trying to let school district or LEAs understand that there are great opportunities out there and they vary based on region. And so we're not necessarily naming some of the more specific that maybe are being thought of right now, but we're trying to stay much more general. And there are so many existing financial institutions that have educational programs that we're trying to leverage that, yeah, we just did not do a deep dive into this particular group. And again, we can continue the conversation, but the goal would be to leverage what is already available to our schools.
Any other comments on items 16 through 20? Hearing none. For items 21 through 25, are there any recommended actions associated with these edits that you want to discuss or that you do not agree with in comments?
Yes. 21B, as it relates to the excerpt, especially in low-income communities, the recommended action was not actionable because there was no suggested alternate phrasing provided. I think the spirit of the comment is that this language is unnecessary and should be omitted, and I'd like to honor that and recommend that the language be removed due to a lack of add value.
Any other comments? Are we on this committee, are we okay with the suggestion from Commissioner Lanning?
Yeah, I wanted to, this started to really make me think about within the document itself, while the intentions may be noble, just looking at this comment really made me sit back and do a double take and think about anywhere where we are utilizing this type of language. I think we need to make sure that, are we saying that only certain groups have, fall into this, into what is being described here? Or is this more of a, hey, this could benefit everyone, and just bringing awareness that all groups need to make sure that, this is information and education that they are all entitled to and have access to. So just something to consider.
I also, not for that one, but 21C.
So I'm sorry, before we get to that, are we clear about what we're doing with 21B? Or 21B is what you,
Yes, so I'm recommending that the language be omitted
and we're all okay with
with
that?
regard to the excerpt.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Commissioner Lanning.
I agree as well. Thank you.
Okay, 21C, you wanted, Commissioner Guerra?
Yeah, so so the recommended action would be to remove that language. Is that what the recommendation is?
Are you making that recommendation?
No, I'm trying to clarify, like, what are we saying is the recommended action?
I think they're saying 21C, it's not actionable because they're highlighting an area, but they're not giving any suggested revision of it.
But what we're saying is that we want to change that to actionable, and the action would be to remove that from the page.
That's your recommendation? Is that?
That's what I heard Commissioner Lanning say.
She was talking about 21B.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying, 21B.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going on to 21.
No, I'm still on 21B.
Yeah, that's
So
the
the current
recommendation.
recommendation is not actionable, but we're saying we're changing that to actionable.
Right. And to remove it.
Yeah, I'm good.
Any other comments about any of the other sections 21 through 25?
I'd like to talk about 21F, please. So it is actionable, not recommended, and because the need for revision is unclear, and I believe this comment was about adding more support for teachers implementing the curriculum under task activities for students, which I always think is a good idea. This is something I was talking about when we first looked at the guide, and I know we had some other just general public comment about more activities and maybe vignettes to help teachers develop curriculum. So I would like to see this change to actionable writer's discretion, if possible.
Any comments or thoughts from our commissioners regarding Commissioner Winower's suggestion? Do you all have any questions or comments about?
Thank you for that comment, and I would just like to add that in that, what that is being, or what's being referenced there as far as enhancing that category was intentionally, just for context, right, was intentionally left very broad, because again, this isn't a prescriptive which curriculum you're going to be utilizing and so forth, so it was trying to build context for the reader, for that educator, particularly in Chapter 2, when they're becoming more familiar with what the topics are. It just gives them a little bit of reference to what that could look like. I would personally be afraid of if we've got too specific with vignettes and so forth in that area of the document. So those call outs are being made in Chapter 4 along with curriculum, but in Chapter 2, if we get too much more specific, in my opinion, we might be infringing upon what we're trying to accomplish in Chapter 4. Again, just the goal of Chapter 2 is to get some bearing on what this could look like. And again, no actual curriculum specifics are included as of right now in that chapter.
So to clarify, what I hear you saying is that we would not need to change this here because the tasks and vignettes are more explicit in Chapter 4?
Yes, that's correct, and more specifically, just that Chapter 2 is intentionally general, and if we are looking to add additional vignettes, maybe some specifics on where those would live, but within Chapter 4, correct, would be my recommendation.
So, commissioners, are we okay leaving it alone, or are we still considering asking it to be actionable with writer's discretion?
I mean, I do appreciate what you're saying. I always think it's helpful, especially if I think about teachers doing this for the first time, just having a little more guidance. But I understand what you're saying in terms of keeping an open mind as you're delving into the topics. But I don't know if there's I'm just looking at it again. I think there could be areas for maybe some general guidance.
Could there be a reference made to Chapter 4? Is like more specific details will be coming in look to Chapter 4?
Certainly something like that could be done. And again, if there are, as you are reviewing this document, if there are specific call outs to where you think that would, even within Chapter 2, if there, I guess my question would be, are we, out of the 12 topics that we have this format for, are we looking, is the ask that I'm hearing that there be vignettes or more specifics for each of those topics? Because again, right now, everything is meant to be covered somewhat equally in that Chapter 2, just for a quick reference point. That is, again, a teacher going back and being able to see at a glance what this topic is, and then if they did want to go to a more comprehensive, like what a curriculum provider says they do with that, that would be Chapter 4. And I know I got convoluted there because I went back, but the point, if there could be specific instruction, or if what is being asked right now, that all of Chapter 2 be enhanced, because these are very different based on time and so forth, these would be different asks.
Would it be possible to reference like the exact spaces or links to that Chapter 4 where it would be referenced?
I certainly wouldn't say no to that. I'm just trying to think of what that would look like. So I think maybe if everything, you know, as I'm hearing this compile, it might be if you guys did vote on that, you know, at teacher recommendation, I would continue right now on the spot. I'm not quite sure what that would look like, but I could definitely keep looking into it, and then there might be an opportunity for further collaboration. I'm not quite sure how that process would work, but I could justify why I moved forward the way I did if there wasn't more opportunity.
it sounds to me that chapter 2 is not for that purpose. I think that some of our commissioners bring up. It's supposed to be more broad, and when we get to chapter 4, then we see some of those things. So I'm leaning towards leaving it as not actionable, or not recommended, excuse me. But go ahead and.
And it's possible that I'm interpreting this a little bit differently, but I'm understanding the writer saying that he's open to revisions or revisiting this if the action that we take is to provide writer's discretion. Is that correct?
Yeah, if it's writer's discretion, I would be happy to continue to look. My question would be, as I have opportunity to reflect and figure out how that could be incorporated, if there would be any further conversation with it, because I believe the next opportunity would only be me submitting to you, and I'm wondering, it sounds like there might be more communication needed, and I just don't know if that's an appropriate ask or even possible.
Yeah, I understand. I did find there's underneath the standards alignment in chapter 2, there's a possible student task / activity. So there's a couple things in chapter 2 already. And I think the question from the public comment was just, could there be more guidance maybe? It's a very general, students assess a hypothetical credit profile, blah, blah, blah. So, it's not as specific, but maybe again, just to help teachers who are learning the curriculum for the first time, guide them in the right directions.
No, absolutely, and I'm hearing that. And I think maybe then that does go back to the linking to chapter 4 in some capacity. I'm just not sure how a reader would maybe be making that transition from chapter 2, but it could be, see chapter 4 and call out a particular provider's lesson. But I feel like that might also lean towards a more prescriptive, this is what the writer, or this is what this guide is recommending you use, even though we've provided all these resources. So I'm open, and I would definitely continue to dig in to see how to accomplish these asks, but I do see some potential stumbling blocks.
So as a committee, are we okay with actionable writer's discretion and making that the recommendation?
I think so. I think changing it to writer's discretion would allow you to put in links, correct? Yes.
I think that sounds great. Thank you.
Yes.
I think that's our recommendation. Any other comments on any of the other?
Yeah, I want to go back to 21C. I found this very interesting. And, I think oftentimes we talk about, how education is really supporting kind of our whole society and a way of thinking and moving things forward. And so I found this very interesting, this idea of banking and participating in the banking system or choosing not to. I'm just wondering, is that addressed in there at all?
So I'm looking at the citation as far as where it says a lack of banking access and so forth. So when you say, is it addressed, do you mean the long-term impacts, or?
Is banking a choice? Is it being presented to students as a choice? Or is it being presented as if you don't hear all the negative consequences?
Oh, that's a good question. So the first topic of of all California standards is all about banking, and I would not say that the way it is written as here's your option to go. It's more of an overview of what banking is. In this first chapter, where we're trying to provide context for the importance of personal finance, the reason that we're referencing that is such a huge research topic, and the impact of being unbanked on long-term financial stability and so forth. So to now directly answer the question, I do not think there's ever a moment where we talk about the option, but I also don't think we do show to your point, we do show the negative impact of not being banked. So there is definitely an emphasis on the importance of being banked, but there's never you have to do this. But I would argue that is an inference that everybody could and probably should take from that. So if that is not a goal of the committee, we could definitely look at it.
I think it's definitely a question. I live in communities that rely heavily on cash and cash flow, and don't really participate in the banking system. And so I'm just wondering, what is that message saying to kids, to students? I think it's important to understand, like, here's the pros and cons, but not making a judgment of, like, if you make this decision, it's automatically going to be a negative. I don't know. Just curious about that.
No, and I appreciate it, but I would also say that it has been my and I will go on record and say it's been my interpretation that is one of the guiding principles of personal finance, is to encourage communities to understand the importance of being banked because of the detriment to not being banked. Not a judgment call. It's usually a lack of access or what have you, but again, the curriculum now is really guiding towards the digital banking world and the fact that you don't need those brick and mortar. So all of that is being discussed. Nobody is being vilified by any stretch of the imagination for not being banked, but it's trying to explain opportunities that maybe didn't exist previously in less tech-motivated generations, and as a result, here are new opportunities.
Yeah, thank you.
So just to be clear, are we okay leaving the recommendation is not actionable?
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments from our commissioners on these items? It is a large section, so I just want to make sure everybody's had a chance to make a comment. '21 through 25, but if there's one that you want to go back to, we can.
I just have a general question. There were a number of items toward the beginning that said not actionable, requires legislation. Are those just sort of left and that's the end of it, or is there any guidance on things to that fall into that category to be revisited in the future?
I think you're speaking specifically about the credentialing issue of whether we had several asking that the guide include CTE, career technical education, business credentials as a credential available to teach, or authorizing a teacher to teach this course. And we that is not in the AB 2927 legislation. That bill specified math, business, social science, and home economics as the credentials that would allow a teacher to teach this course. That could change. I think that voice is being heard, but that's not something that we can do within the scope of this document.
So everything was in that issue area? All of these that say?
I think there was one, there may have been a couple that asked for a change in the topics that were being addressed or removing a topic. And that also, the 12 topics were specified in the legislation, and they're followed in order in the curriculum guide as they were laid out in legislation. And so those are not things that we would be able to change or feel comfortable rearranging the order or removing any of those topics.
Yeah, I understand that. I guess thank you. What I'm wondering is when, these comments are submitted and then it's clear that it's not within the purview of this effort, does it just end there, or is that, are these otherwise, these recommendations, thoughts, perspective shared in any way, captured in any way for next time around, so to speak? Or is it just, sorry, this isn't appropriate? Does that make sense?
Well, yes, I believe that
Aren't they welcome?
there's certain, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I think they're welcome to address it to their legislator to try and get the legislation changed if they felt that strongly about it, or if it needs to be changed.
Yes, yes, and so that would not really fall into our role, but they seem to have a good voice, and so I think they'll continue pursuing their ideas.
Any other comments before we move on?
I just want to thank you both and everyone involved in this project for this strong guide. And one of the things that's really resonating with me is how much the students are excited about this course, which we don't always see. So just thank you for all your hard work.
I want to second that. I just think of all the things that are happening in education, this is one of the most exciting because of how relevant, and no child is going to ask the question, when am I ever going to use this, right, in my life? This is that course that they will use for the rest of their life. And so I think it's great, the work you all have done. Okay. Now that we have finished with the list of edits in the public comment table, are there any other additional edits that the subject matter committee would like to suggest for discussion? Does anyone have a question about any of the decisions that we have made at this time? Now that we have reached consensus on the recommendations, I would like to formalize our decisions by making 2 recommendations to the full IQC. There will be 2 motions. The first will be to recommend the draft curriculum guide to the full IQC with the edits recommended by the SMC. The second will be to ask the full IQC to delegate the IQC chair and the SMC chair to work with Seaford staff and the writers as they make the changes that are approved by the commission. I need a motion from an SMC member to recommend the revised draft personal finance curriculum guide to the full Instructional Quality Commission with the edits approved by the SMC.
I move. Oh, okay. I motion for the to recommend the revised draft personal finance curriculum guide to the full Instructional Quality Commission with the edits approved by the SMC.
The motion has been made. Is there a second to the motion?
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion of the motion? Denise, is there any public comment on the motion?
There's none.
Let's conduct the vote. All in favor? All opposed? Anyone abstaining?
The motion passes.
Next, I would like a motion to ask the full Instructional Quality Commission to delegate to the IQC chair and the Personal Finance SMC chair the review and approval of the agreed upon changes to the draft curriculum guide, as well as any technical edits identified by the Seaford staff, grammar, punctuation, word order, etc., before the draft is transmitted to the State Board of Education for review and approval.
I motion to ask the full Instructional Quality Commission to delegate to the IQC chair and the Personal Finance SMC chair the review and approval of the agreed upon changes to the draft curriculum guide, as well as any technical edits identified by Seaford, grammar, punctuation, word order, etc., before the draft is transmitted to the State Board of Education for review and approval.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I second.
Is there any discussion of the motion? Denise, is there any public comment on the motion?
There is none.
We will now vote. All in favor? All opposed? Anyone abstain from voting?
The motion passes.
Thank you, commissioners, for your thoughtful discussions today. Thanks also to the members of the public who have provided public comment throughout the process. I would also like to acknowledge CDE staff and our writers, Jeff Allen, Matt Hayes, and others who contributed. Our recommendations will be considered shortly by the full commission following a second public hearing. I now close this meeting of the Personal Finance Subject Matter Committee.
I now reconvene the full commission. Next on the agenda is item 4A, reports actions from subcommittees to the full commission. We will begin with the action item is from the ELA-ELD Subject Matter Committee. Public comment for this agenda item is now open. Please follow the instructions on the screen if you would like to speak. ELA Subject Matter Committee Chair Zepeda, I believe you have a motion for us.
All right. As chair of the English Language Arts, English Language Development Subject Matter Committee, I move that the full commission recommend the instructional materials reviewers and content review experts to the State Board of Education.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second the motion.
Commissioner Zepeda has moved and Commissioner Regosa has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I'm just wondering, because I'm not on the ELA-ELD subcommittee, but I do have a question. So going back, Johanna kind of touched on this as well, attrition. And Commissioner Vang was discussing the idea of IMRs becoming CREs, and I'm just wondering, those CREs that didn't qualify for one reason or another, are they automatically becoming IMRs? Okay.
So if after going through and looking at credentials and such, they moved from being as self-identifying themselves as a CRE, we made them an IMR.
Automatically?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I was concerned a little as we went through the mathematics process.
We didn't disqualify anyone for that.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Unless they're conflict of interest.
A conflict of interest, correct.
Is there any public comment on the motion?
There is none.
The public comment line for this item is now closed. I now call for a vote. All in favor? All opposed? Anyone abstaining from voting?
The motion passes.
Next, we'll move to the action item from Personal Finance Subject Matter Committee. Public comment for this agenda item is now open. Please follow the instructions on the screen if you would like to speak. Personal Finance Subject Matter Committee, Chair McGaffey, I believe you have a motion for us.
As chair of the Personal Finance Subject Matter Committee, I move that the full commission recommend the draft Personal Finance Curriculum Guide to the State Board of Education with the edits approved by the Personal Finance SMC.
Is there a second to the motion?
I second it.
Commissioner McGaffey has moved and Commissioner Winnower has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? Is there any public comment on the motion?
There's none.
I now call for a vote. All in favor? All opposed? Anyone abstaining from voting?
The motion passes.
We have a second motion from the SMC, which is to authorize myself and Commissioner McGaffey to review the edits from the writers and the CDE staff. Commissioner McGaffey?
As chair of the Personal Finance SMC, I move that the full commission delegate the IQC chair and myself to review the agreed-upon changes to the draft Personal Finance Curriculum Guide, as well as any minor edits identified by Curriculum Frameworks and Instructional Resources Division staff, grammar, punctuation, word order, before the draft is transmitted to the State Board.
Is there a second to the motion?
I second.
Commissioner McGaffey has moved and Commissioner Reyna Guerra has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion?
Yes. Sorry, guys. So as we know, Chair McGaffey is, SMC Chair McGaffey is terming out today, sadly. As we move forward, does that then transfer to the next SMC Chair?
Vice Chair?
Yes.
And we're all looking at me. In the past, when this has happened with mathematics, the SMC chair continued to provide, because they are the most knowledgeable about the process. And so if SMC Chair McGaffey would like to continue, offline from the IQC, as in that respect with IQC Chair Garrett, that would be okay.
I would be happy to.
So I just want to say thank you both for volunteering to do that. It's valuable work.
Is there any public comment on the motion?
There's none.
And I'll call for a vote. All in favor? All opposed? Anyone abstaining from voting?
The motion passes.
Commissioner McGaffey, would you like to make any final comments?
No, thank you. Just been a great experience being chair of this committee.
The public comment line for this item is now closed. Next item is English Language Development Compendium. Public comment for this agenda item is now open. Please follow the instructions on the screen if you would like to speak. I will now turn it over to Executive Director Torres.
Thank you so much, Chair Guerra. And as you can imagine, as a state agency, the Department of Education has multiple initiatives aimed at improving outcomes for students, and each with a specific focus. It can be daunting for an educator or administrator in the district office to navigate those resources that we have available. In an effort to improve access to all of the wonderful guidance and tools available to improve outcomes for English learners, CFERD decided to lead an effort to create a document that provides information about all of those resources targeted specifically to support English learners. Alejandro Hernandez is an education programs consultant in CFERD and our English language development expert. He has led the creation of this compendium, and he will share information about this fantastic new document. Alejandro.
Torres, thank you for having me, IQC members. So, can they see the slide? Okay. So I'm here to provide an overview of a document that we published, CFERD published in October. It's called the English Language Development Compendium, a collection of California Department of Education resources that support the success of English learners. Moving forward, I'm going to be referring to this as the ELD Compendium. I'm Alejandro Hernandez. That was already mentioned. So the topics we're going to be addressing today are first, the purpose of this document. You might be wondering, has everybody had a chance to take a look at this document yet? I see some yeses, some nos. Okay, so the purpose of the ELD Compendium. Secondly, we're going to be addressing some of the questions that the ELD Compendium answers. We're going to end with the discussion of the design of the document and how it's set up to be expanded and updated over time. So what is the ELD Compendium? Well, it's a document that collects a wide array of resources that inform planning, instructional, evaluation, and implementation decisions that ensure that EL students receive the necessary support to succeed academically and socially. This document can serve as a resource for California educators because it outlines the comprehensive support system that's available through the CDE to help ensure the academic success of English learners. And it provides an overview of key resources, instructional strategies, and state policies that are designed to equip educators with the knowledge and tools that they need to support English learners. There are three major sections in this compendium. You can see them here. It's the outcomes. One focuses on the outcomes, the second one is guidance, and the third one is support. So in the first section, the outcome section, the big question that's answered is, what standards, initiatives, legislation, and regulatory tools articulate outcomes for English learners? In the second section, the guidance section, that section answers the question, what are the recommended supports and instructional practices found in curriculum frameworks and CDE web pages that benefit English learners? And the third section, supports. What services and support do various CDE divisions offer educators to support EL students? So we're going to dive in a little deeper into each of the sections. In the first major section, it addresses the desired outcomes outlined in California ELD and content standards. It also addresses how ELD instruction can align with broader educational initiatives, relevant legislation, and current regulations. I'd like to highlight that some of the initiatives that are discussed here are the English Learner Roadmap, the Education for a Global Economy, or EDGE initiative, the State Seal of Biliteracy, Global California 2030, the Binational Migrant Education Program, the Exchange Visitor Program for Teachers, and the Bilingual Teacher Professional Development Program. So this outcome section, the first major section, can be a resource for making sure that ELD practices are both effective and compliant with state and federal expectations. Moving on to the second major section. That begins with a summary of the guidance found in curriculum frameworks. In this section, there's a focus on recommendations for teachers to work with and support English learners. There are also descriptions of proven strategies that teachers can use, can integrate into all content areas to both address academic goals and support students' language development. Now, because the efforts to support EL students in California are multifaceted, this document also goes into discussions of long-term English learners with disabilities, English learners experiencing homelessness, and the matter of English learners and chronic absenteeism. The third and final section focuses on CDE. At the California Department of Education, different divisions focus on key areas such as multilingual education, teacher support, curriculum development, special education, and student success. So in this section discusses how each division listed here on the screen plays an important role in making sure all students get the support they need to succeed. This section discusses how these 5 divisions helps schools build stronger systems, support diverse learners, and make sure educators have the tools to do their best work. And you'll notice that in each of the discussions of the 5 divisions, there's an emphasis on the success of English learners. The design of the compendium. From the outset, we expected this document to evolve. We consider this a living document that will grow as new resources become available. In terms of the content, the approach we followed was to provide accessible overviews of the topics that we address. To do that, we aim to briefly explain essential information and not copy and paste, what's already on the CDE website. Each of the sections includes links to related resources, and over time, this document can be updated and expanded to reflect current priorities, evolving language, and available resources. Now here, I'd like to point out that we involved a group of over 60 people who are dedicated to the success of English learners. We meet once a month. This committee is called the English Learner Initiatives Implementation Committee. Over 60 people were given the opportunity to review and provide feedback on this document. In addition, representatives from 5 different divisions that we discuss here also took a look at the content to make sure it was accurate and complete. Dr. Bonnie Garcia, our state literacy co-lead, also reviewed portions of this document. And Dr. Torres had this idea. Johanna Harder has been very supportive. Kyle Petty helped with the tone of the document. And oh my God. I'm skipping to this. The intent of this document is to be revised about once a year. And so if you have any ideas, any suggestions for modifying the language, for expanding sections, adding new sections, you can submit all those suggestions to cferd@cde.ca.gov. And are there any questions or comments?
Alejandro, I just want to say this sounds like a passion project.
Yes.
And I just really appreciate you bringing that passion to students who sometimes are invisible and making them visible. So I appreciate you. The tears are welling up for me too.
I also want to state my thanks. What a beautiful thing to do. Thank you so much for creating this document. And I do have one question in terms of newcomers. Are they included in the document as well?
Yes. Yes, I should have listed it as well. Yes, newcomers are very much, they have their own section and resources. Yes, yes.
I want to commend the initiative to it being a living document and being revised on a yearly basis through such a large committee that represents across our state and across the different divisions within our state in public education. And so I hear, see you, and as an English learner myself, I thank you.
Thank you. So finally, Susan Sweeney was my collaborator. Thank you.
Thank you. Denise, is there any public comment?
There is none.
The public comment line for this item is now closed. Next item is 4C, P3 progressions. Public comment for this agenda item is now open. Please follow the instructions on the screen if you would like to speak. I will now turn it over again to Executive Director Torres.
Thanks again, Chair Guerra. There's momentum in California to support our youngest learners before they enter K-12. You might recall the presentation you received on the recently updated preschool transitional kindergarten learning foundations guidance in January of this year. Our colleagues in the Early Education Division have been hard at work to make the connections between that PTKLF document and the core content areas that this commission has developed for kindergarten through grade 3. Here to talk about that important connection is Director Stephen Profiter, who leads the Early Education Division. Welcome, Director Profiter.
Welcome. Right the first time. All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And it's I've been at the department for 6 years or so, and in the last 2 years, the last year, I've been able to join this commission to present a couple times. So really appreciate your interest in our preschool foundations and P3 progressions here. Let's see here, as I orient myself to, are you seeing? Okay, wonderful, thank you. As Director Torres shared, Stephen Proffer, Director of the Early Education Division, we have the pleasure of supporting universal pre-kindergarten expansion in California, which includes transitional kindergarten and includes the California State Preschool Program, among other programs in the state. We also believe in preschool to third grade alignment, and what I'm going to present this morning, or this afternoon, addresses a component of preschool to third grade alignment. So just a little background or actually this is the agenda here, not the background quite yet. So I'll provide a little bit of background, like how did we get here, why are we here, share a little bit about the purpose of the preschool to third grade learning foundations, I'll share some of the domains that are included because the domains, if you're familiar with the preschool and TK learning foundations, there's alignment, but not, it's probably best described as there's common domains between the PTKLF and the P3 progressions. And so I'll talk about that a little bit and then provide some examples of the materials. Hopefully you've had a chance to take a look, but if not, I'm going to hopefully wet your whistle a little bit on the and get you kind of interested or excited about diving into the document itself. And then I'll just conclude talking about how we're hearing programs are using the P3 learning progressions and how they're intended to be used. So some background on the progressions. When in 2021, when the state started the expansion of transitional kindergarten, it also invested funds to update the preschool and TK learning foundations, which is a foundational document used in our preschool, state preschool programs. And the legislature had indicated it was that TK curriculum was intended to align to the preschool learning foundations as they were called at the time. We updated them so that they're PTKLF. At the same time, we believe in alignment from preschool to third grade. And we believe that we could do work to support instruction curriculum in that area. And so while we worked on, prioritized the PTKLF, we also then worked on the P3 learning progressions. Did things, identified which domains we want to include, which I'll talk a little bit more about. But to do the work around, to conduct the work around the progressions, we worked with content experts across the 5 different content areas that you'll hear a little bit about. And then we had reviewers that were focused and steeped in diversity, equity, and inclusion. We also collaborated with divisions in the department. We always say that one of the great things that TK did is it really created a bridge, not just in communities, it strengthened a bridge in the department. So we really saw our work with the curriculum frameworks and instructional resources division strengthened, multilingual support division, special education division. Our literacy co-directors really worked really closely and appreciated their support in reviewing the content of the progressions. We also had a lot of feedback from focus groups. 114 P3 educators and 30 different interest holder groups. So we really wanted to make sure that we were hearing from educators, folks who, we hope would use this resource to support, and as well as site administrators to support that alignment. Okay, so a little bit about what they are. So they demonstrate the alignment between some pretty foundational documents, the preschool and TK learning foundations, and then the common core standards that are used in K3 or K3 standards. So it bridges. We really wanted to make sure that as we support that this P3 continuum, this P3 alignment, that folks can see those common areas, or those areas that are common between those different standards. So if you haven't read the introduction document, really encourage you to do that. And I think probably on a slide here we have a resource if you haven't seen it yet. In terms of the domains that are included, so I mentioned there's 5 domains that we included. We would have loved to have done 9, all 9 from the PTKLF, but we really wanted to make sure with the resources we had, we really wanted to make sure that we focused on the domains that educators told us were most impactful. So we landed on 5. And those are language and literacy, math, science, social and emotional development, and approaches to learning. The approaches to learning domain includes things like managing distractions, problem solving, and planning skills. To speak a little bit to how the learning progressions are organized, if you've had a chance to take a look, you would notice that there are three main components of the progressions. The first is a series of tables that are organized by key areas and demonstrate alignment between the PTKLF and the K3 standards. The second component that you'd see is the pardon me, I'm looking for the cursor, is you would see in-practice examples, which really are intended to bring the alignment to life and to demonstrate the examples of children's knowledge and skills in that P3 context, and support teaching within a developmentally appropriate, culturally and linguistically responsive lens. The in-practice examples are then followed by a summary of teaching strategies and key points from the examples, really to show how those strategies can be applied across the P3 continuum, not necessarily for one specific grade. And I've got a couple slides here that will hopefully kind of maybe illustrate that a little bit. And then to access the P3 learning progressions, we do have a web page dedicated to it. I did it this morning. If you search P3 progressions on the CDE homepage, it'll take you to our main P3 page, and there's a tab that says P3 progression. So it was easy enough for me to find. Let's see. Oh, the link is right there on the slide. Perfect. All right, so our first example, this is an example of the table where you could see foundations on the left. So when I say foundations, it's the preschool and TK learning foundations. And then you can see the alignment to the standards for K3 on the right-hand side. So it's kind of split about a third of the way through the chart there. This is what the tables look like for domains where there are existing K3 standards. So things like language literacy, math, and science. Okay. One of the domains for which there aren't K3 standards, social emotional development and approaches to learning. I'm showing an example here of the social emotional development table here. Sorry about that. You can again see the PTKLF foundations, kind of the left half for this specific skill, followed by the skill progression up to third grade on the right-hand side. And then moving to one of the things I mentioned about the in-practice examples where you kind of see the differences in, you could see kind of examples in grades or across different grades. So after the tables, the two tables, though they are followed by in-practice examples, such as what we see here, centered around a specific skill or a theme, and then a couple of examples. So one at the earlier end of the P3 continuum, like preschool, TK, or kindergarten, and then one at the later end of the P3 continuum, such as an example from first, second, or third grade. And just to highlight another example here, we have, I mentioned that we were mindful of reflecting the culture variety of our California's children, right? And so we have an example here where there's a culturally and linguistically responsive, example here, and it also includes instructional strategies about how it can be playful and joyful in that developmentally appropriate lens across the P3 continuum. I'll provide a highlight here from the in-practice example. So what you're seeing here is a kind of a highlight section that summarizes some of the teaching strategies across both examples for that skill area. We also have call-out boxes for things like designated ELD and supporting children with disabilities. And then just to provide an example of some of the teaching strategies emphasized in the language and literacy document, which includes using a range of instructional approaches from explicit and child-directed instruction, use of formative assessments that are ongoing and may include a combination of observational or even direct assessments, culturally and linguistically sustaining practices so that children can connect more deeply with literacy activities that actually relate to their own identities and lived experiences, and then opportunities for extended meaningful conversations such as peer-to-peer conversations and adult-guided group discussions, creating a print-rich environment including books and print materials that reflect children's home languages, connecting books, media to prior knowledge, including asking open-ended questions to prompt children to make those connections, and then creating daily experiences for children to use while writing so they continue to develop a sense of identity as writers through meaningful activities. And I'm going to conclude on just both some intentions for how we see these progressions being used and some feedback that we've received around use of the progressions. So we have heard in the months that the progressions were released. I think I mentioned they were released in the summer. We've heard from educators, we've heard from administrators, district leaders about how they've been using the progressions. So one includes informing preschool to third grade alignment with curriculum and instructional coaching. Yay, that's exactly what we wanted to hear. One LEA told us that they created a P3 team to work with these documents. It was also noted that, or shared with us, the perspective that it's a digestible resource. Yay, because why create something if you can't, if it's hard to use? But in particular, highlighting how useful it was for leaders as well as, and principals who may need a more zoomed out view of P3 to more easily see connections between the preschool and TK learning foundations and K3 standards. And also because of the inclusion of social emotional development and approaches to learning, the publication has really emphasized the importance of skills in the K3 space and provided a resource for educators to see what is developmentally appropriate in these areas in the early grades, where such gaps may exist. We have also heard some excitement about using the latter two domains I just mentioned, so approaches to learning and social emotional development, and using them in tandem with the new desired results developmental profile assessment. It's an example of a formative assessment I mentioned earlier. The DRDP, as we call it, was extended to third grade, specifically in social, emotional, and approaches to learning, so that educators also have an accompanying assessment to use with this resource. And there we go. That's my time. I really appreciate the opportunity to present, and I'm here for any questions you all may have.
Not a question, just a comment, but one more thing to add to your list. This has been a great resource for the new P3 credential programs for educator preparation. So I know for a fact it's being used.
Love that. Thank you.
Actually, to build on that, there's quite a few TK teachers who are also teaching a split. So it's like TK and kinder. And so this document has been really, really helpful with just the planning and thinking through what their day can look like and all of that. So TK teachers are TK kinder teacher in this case, so grateful for this resource.
I really appreciate hearing that, especially we have the language and statute that we were really trying to be mindful of kind of addressing some of the things that we've heard about the language in statute saying that the curriculum it uses a modified kindergarten curriculum, which really there's a lot of gray in that. So we really hope to provide some specificity around those differences. So thank you.
I also want to express appreciation for those call-out boxes. It was surfaced a few meetings ago, right? TK being in this space that doesn't have LPAC for, our TK kiddos, and so how do we support our TK teachers? And so I appreciate the fact that in that P3 continuum, there is a space for support for our TK teachers who need it.
This is very impressive. It really, really is. I have a question for those of us who are not as familiar with how such resources get incorporated. Are there trainings that take place or webinars, or how does, is that up to every school district, or what, kind of what happens locally in that training category versus at the level of the state?
It's a fantastic question. It's something that we think about a lot. So the things that we can do, right, at the State Department of Education is we can do those webinars. We can provide training. And we can, we at the same time, we also convene, I forget what we call them. It's like a community of practice, if you will. One of the things that at the same year that the state invested in the updates to the PTKLF, it also invested in planning and implementation dollars that went to school districts, charter schools, and then county offices of education. Many county or nearly, I think, all county offices of education have a UPK coordinator. Many of them, though, have extended into their role into a P3 coordinator. And so they've done things like that and convened districts locally. It is local, right? And so it really kind of requires that kind of local decision-making around prioritizing training for it, but we are really happy to see it where that's happening. Yeah.
Great. Denise, is there any public comment?
There's none.
The public comment line for this item is now closed. Thank you so much for your presentation. Next item is 4D, individual commissioner reports. This is a standing agenda item where commissioners can give a report on any committees on which they represent the IQC. This is also an opportunity for commissioners to suggest agenda items for future meetings. Would anyone like to speak? No, everybody's like, my tummy's growling. All right, I'm so excited about this one. So public comment for this agenda item is now open. Please follow the instructions on the screen if you would like to speak. Today's Commissioner McGaffey, Reyna Guerra, and Winnower's last meeting. As the term on the IQC are ending, I'd like to share a few words and then I'll open it up to any other commissioners who'd like to share. So first, I'd like to acknowledge Commissioner McGaffey, who never seeks the spotlight. His steady presence and willingness to step up and whenever needed have made a meaningful impact on the Instructional Quality Commission, including being the chair of the Personal Finance Committee. He brings a rare combination of steadfast commitment and genuine warmth to every space he enters. We're deeply grateful for his service and quiet leadership as he's modeled throughout his term. In Commissioner Winnower's work on the Math Subject Matter Committee, she has consistently brought patience, kindness, and a deep thoughtfulness. Throughout our term together, her questions have pushed us to focus on what truly matters, what is best for educators and students. Her steadfast leadership and compassion approach have made our work stronger. And Commissioner Reyna Guerra brought humor, warmth, and a bright light to every space she entered. She approached our work with genuine curiosity, always seeking to understand deeply and center the needs of California students. Her thoughtful advocacy, paired with her steady presence as vice chair of the Subject Matter Committee in Math, created a meaningful opportunities for us to connect around our shared values. We are grateful for the insight, heart, and joy she contributed throughout her term. And I'll open it up for anybody else.
I'd just like to say thank you for all of you, for bringing your expertise. It's been really nice getting to know you and learning from you and hearing your very thoughtful input and insights into the work that we've done. And I know that the children of California have really benefited from all the work that you have put in with us, and we are really going to miss you. I wish you well.
I'd also like to thank our commissioners for your service and your dedication to the students of California. One of the things we were talking about how earlier today is that we only see each other every other month, but somehow we've become really close, and so you've been part of this community, and we really appreciate your commitment. again. And then personally, I'd like to also thank Commissioner McGaffey, who has been my mentor the last 2 years. And so he's really helped me with making this transition to being an IQC commissioner. So thank you.
I would also like to thank the three of you for your commitment to the students of California and great appreciation to Commissioner Reina Guerra. I was honored to have her serve as a vice chair for the Math Subject Matter Committee. Not only was she there, what many of you didn't get to see, coming with me into all of the different rooms and engaging in the work behind the scenes, but also she was here just to offer her support as we were back up here presenting to the State Board of Education. I don't think I could have done that without her support. So thank you so much. And it's true, we have become close, and I am honored to call you colleagues and beyond honored to call you friends. Thank you.
Okay, Denise, any public comment?
There's none.
Right.
I just want to really say something really quickly. This meeting is always very difficult for me because I get to know each and every one of you and see all of the different contributions that you make for the great state of California. And I'm blessed to be able to be a part of that. But this group of outgoing commissioners is even more important to me because you're the first group that I helped interview and be a part of the commission when I first started as the interim director of Seaford. So believe it or not, I haven't always been in this seat. And so this means a lot. Going to miss the three of you. You will get certificates in the mail and plaques. They will say certificate of recognition presented to each and every one of you in honor of outstanding service as valued member of the Instructional Quality Commission from 2022 through 2025. Your valuable contributions of time and expertise have been instrumental in furthering our mission to provide all children with quality and innovative educational materials so they can develop and achieve their full potential. I extend my sincere appreciation for the time and effort you've contributed to such a worthwhile endeavor, signed by the Honorable Tony Thurmond. So that'll be in the mail to you. Thank you all for your service.
The public comment line for this item is now closed. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our agenda for the day. I now adjourn the meeting.